am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to your word. Let it be done to me. Let it be. These words of faith, this fiat as it's known, is Mary's great acceptance. And without her acceptance, Christ does not come into the world as we know it. In this sense, we have to acknowledge in the telling the story, in this grand march of God's increasing imminence in history, that Mary is the mother of divine grace. And in many ways, we can only conceive of her as the first priest. For who else can say first, "This is my body, this is my blood"? And that in our celebration of Christmas, we celebrate the fullness of God's love for us, so full that he sent his only Son to be born like us. And we celebrate our human participation in the salvation of the world. For it was a fully human child that came to be one like us. And Mary said, "Let it be done to me according to your word." A depth of wisdom in a young girl, a depth of understanding, though not really knowing the details or getting it. A depth of trust that God wanted it this way. Let it be done to me according to your word. So be it. Amen. It's fascinating. Each and every year, we slow down as a church in the midst of a busy season, built around our celebrations, but often forgetting it, not really being central to how most people celebrate the Christmas season. But we gather as church to tell this story of how Jesus came into our world, of Mary and Joseph having to move from Nazareth to Bethlehem because of a census, of their inability to find a place to live, and of Jesus being born in a stable and placed in a feed box, a place where animals ate. And we approach it in different ways each year as children. We hear the story differently and we revel in it. We marvel at the little porcelain babe in the crib. We marvel at that gift that we receive, not those gifts we receive as well, but the gift of Christ as one like us. And many of us in our schooling and in our university years move through a different level of doubt and questioning and pointing to the impossibleness of the story. And yet, as we age, as we experience both that loss of innocence of childhood and move through life and encounter new wonders and new ways, we can hear the story again and accept it wholeheartedly and truthfully. And what Paul Ricoeur, the theologian, said is second naivete. We've lost the innocence of youth, but we revisit the story in a new and powerful and meaningful way, because in it we see truth. We see the wisdom of God at work. And in fact, it's exactly what we hear in our second reading today from St. Paul to the Romans, hoping that we will allow ourselves to be filled with the strength that allows us to hear the story of Jesus with wisdom and with hope. And that knowledge is one thing. And many people have said we are clearly smarter, we're more knowledgeable in the modern age than they would have been in the time of Jesus. But we're not necessarily wiser. For we forget to hold on to the truths as we've experienced and the truths that we've heard in the stories of our faith. we forget that there is something amazingly important about hearing that God so loves us, that he came like us, that we might be free, and that we can embrace that freedom in everything we do. Our first reading today tells us of David's attempt to build a house for God, and God smacks him down. Who are you to build me a house? For I built you. I built the house of Israel, the house of David that will go on forever, and that we see in Jesus the fulfillment of that promise. And that we see in Mary, in some sense, a fulfillment of that promise. That there will be a house, a tabernacle. There will be a place prepared for Christ that is filled with grace. A place where Jesus will be brought to term, a place from which he'll issue forth into our world. And in the person of Mary, we see not only the first priest, we see the image of one who bears the Christ, the image that each of us are called to repeat in our own lives. And if we were to open our hearts fully to the mystery, if we were to allow ourselves to steep in the wisdom of the ages, we would recognize that the promise of Christ is alive in us. And though it's incomplete in the world, we can reach out to those who are broken with a healing touch. We can embrace those who feel isolated and alone. We can be the voice that says oppression must stop. We can pray for and be the peace that we long for. And none of us individually are going to make it happen across the world, but we're going to make it happen in our world. And we are going to bring forth and give birth to the Christ. That's what we celebrate. That's what we say yes to. That is our so be it. Let it be done to me according to thy word. That is our amen.